October 13, 2001. ALDS Game 3, and Terrence Long rips a ball down the right field line. The A's currently lead this series 2-0. Paul O'Neill's throw misses both cutoff men, and Derek Jeter makes one of the all-time great plays of a shortstop. You know the play, the overthrow, the follow-up from Jeter, and the flip to Posada, tagging out Jeremy Giambi to cut down the game-tying run. The question is, what if Jeremy Giambi slid and tied the game? To understand just how important the Derek Jeter flip play was, we have to go back in the series and start in Game 1. Game 1 featured Mark Mulder and Roger Clemens in the pitching matchup, but the Oakland offense came to play. Home runs from Terrence Long and Jason Giambi set the stage for a nice lead for the Athletics, and a 4-for-4 game from leadoff man Johnny Damon helped propel the Athletics to a Game 1 win with a clinching save from closer Jason Isringhausen. In Game 2, a fourth-inning solo shot from outfielder Ron Gant put the Athletics up 1-0, and in the ninth inning, a Johnny Damon triple followed by a Miguel Tejada ground ball to third that was booted by Scott Brocious, gave the Athletics a 2-0 lead in the game, and Jason Isringhausen once again shut it down in the ninth to send the series back to Oakland, best of 5, with the Athletics up 2-0. In Game 3, the third of the three-headed monster from Oakland, Barry Zito was pitching his heart out, and Mike Mussina was matching him inning for inning. A fourth-inning home run once again, this time for the Yankees, and Jorge Posada had the Yankees up 1-0, going to the bottom of the seventh. Mussina was dealing still, and after Jeremy Giambi reached first base, that Terrence Long double down the line became the iconic play as Jeter made the perfect flip to Jorge Posada, catching Giambi at the plate and leaving everybody to wonder, why did Jeremy Giambi not slide? What could possibly have happened if Giambi slid? That series would make a huge turn as the Yankees went on to win Game 3 1-0. So that Giambi run would have tied the game and sent it to extra innings potentially. If we go on the theory that everybody plays out the way it did, it would have been a 1-1 game. And understanding that season, the Yankees and Athletics were both 500 teams in extra innings that season. In Game 4, that would not have happened potentially in our scenario. Game 4, the Yankees beat up on the Athletics and sent it back to Game 5 in Yankee Stadium, where they took the series and capped off a miraculous comeback in the best-of-5 series, sending the Oakland Athletics home in 5 games after having that definitive 2-0 series advantage. To fully understand the what-ifs of the 2001 season, we have to understand what the Yankees did after defeating the Oakland Athletics in that division series. The Yankees would go into the championship series and defeat the Seattle Mariners 4-1 in the championship series, returning to what would be their 4th consecutive World Series at that time. And they had won the previous 3 World Series championships. They would meet the Arizona Diamondbacks, who were playing in their first ever World Series championship as the quickest expansion team to ever reach a World Series. And in that series, that is a series that is known across baseball for all the twists and turns. And in a 7-game series, it was that Luis Gonzalez single up the middle in the bottom of the 9th inning in Game 7 off of closer Mariano Rivera that sent the Diamondbacks to their first ever World Series championship. Of course, backed by the incredible starting pitching of Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson. That 2001 season is one of the absolute craziest in all of baseball history. And to really understand and get into the what-ifs of the 2001 season and what could have happened with the change in the Derek Jeter flip play, you have to understand how everything came together in 2001. As mentioned, the 2001 Yankees were coming in on a roll, having won the last 3 World Series. But this wasn't a vaunted Yankees team as it had been the last 3 years. Rookie Alfonso Soriano was busting in as a second baseman. Derek Jeter was in the prime of his career, but some of the other mainstays were kind of dwindling towards the end of their career. Paul O'Neill and David Justice had decent seasons, but not some of the best in their career, and Chuck Knobloch was a lost experiment as a second baseman and as a left fielder. They were very much backed by their pitching staff, featuring Mike Mussina, Roger Clemens, and Andy Pettitte at the top of that rotation, and backed with a stellar bullpen with guys like Randy Choate, Ramiro Mendoza, and of course, Mariano Rivera. The Yankees would go on to win 95 games in that 2001 season, winning the AL East and being the number 2 seed entering into those playoffs as the third best team in the American League, but they were able to qualify and play the wild card winning Oakland Athletics because the Athletics won the wild card and would not play the team from their own division. That Seattle Mariner team, of course, was the Seattle Mariner team that set a major league record by winning 116 games in the regular season. They finished 14 games ahead of the 102-win Oakland Athletics and set that major league record in the process. They were not a vaunted offensive team. They were led by career years from guys like Brett Boone and Mike Cameron, along with the still highly productive DH in Edgar Martinez. They had the very consistent John Olerud as their first baseman, and in right field they are led by some unknown Japanese import, the unforgettable Ichiro Suzuki, who not only won Rookie of the Year, but MVP in that 2001 season. They had a tremendous pitching staff led by the likes of Freddie Garcia, Aaron Seeley, and Jamie Moyer, as well as one of the best bullpens in all of baseball, featuring Jeff Nelson, Arthur Rhodes, and Kazuhiro Sasaki. Those Mariners would qualify as the number 1 seed in the American League that season and would knock off the Cleveland Indians in 5 games. Yes, a Cleveland Indians team led by starter pitcher CC Sabathia, who could not overcome the depth and talent that those Mariner teams had, and they advanced to the championship series, where they lost that championship series 4-1 to the New York Yankees. One of the first biggest what-ifs. What if it was the Athletics and Mariners in that series? Of course, the other team that is so important to that 2001 season we have to take a look at is the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were led offensively by first baseman Mark Grace, outfielder Reggie Sanders, and of course the incomparable Luis Gonzalez in that season. 57 home runs, 142 RBIs for that Diamondbacks team. But when it comes to pitching, that Diamondbacks team is known for 2 guys, Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson. They had some nice seasons from guys like Albie Lopez. Miguel Bautista was a tremendous swingman and starter in the playoffs. And they had closer Byung-Hyun Kim. The Diamondbacks that season finished with the 6th best record in all of baseball, 92 wins, and they advanced the World Series by knocking off the St. Louis Cardinals in the NL Division Series 3-2, and then the NLCS saw them knock off the vaunted Atlanta Braves to qualify for their first ever World Series championship, of course bringing home that championship with that Game 7 victory. The wonders of it all, what if it had been Oakland? What if it had been someone else? The Derek Jeter play completely changed baseball, and we have to ask, what if? To start off our what ifs, the first one is going to be, if Jeremy Giambi had slid, scores that run, and the Oakland Athletics win the ALDS in 3 games. That would have set up an Oakland-Seattle American League Championship Series. And during the 2001 season, yes, the Mariners set the all-time record of 116 wins, but against Oakland, they were 10-9 in that season series and actually held a -4 run differential against the Athletics. And in September of that year, Oakland had taken 4 of 6 games in September in 2001 against the Mariners. They had swept the Mariners earlier on in September, while the Mariners had taken 2 of 3 from the Athletics in Seattle towards the end of September. So it very much was likely an AL championship series that could have gone the distance with the way the 2 teams had played against each other. Solid starting pitching, and the starting pitching would have matched up the way you would expect it. Mulder, Hudson, and Zito would have been able to match up against the Seattle Mariners top 3 of Freddie Garcia, Aaron Seeley, and Jamie Moyer. With all of these what-ifs, we have to start to piece together some of them. Let's suggest maybe that the Seattle Mariners had won the ALCS and advanced to the World Series. How would they have been looked at differently? If the Mariners had beaten the Arizona Diamondbacks in the World Series and they were the best team in baseball that season, what if their depth had overcome the Arizona Diamondbacks, winning Seattle's first ever World Series championship? How would that have changed the outlook for the Seattle Mariners' future? How would we remember a 116 win Seattle Mariner team if they had gone on to win the World Series? Baseball in Seattle would have changed forever. We definitely have an idea what would happen if they had lost to the Oakland Athletics in the ALCS, because that's exactly what happened with them against the Yankees. So much of this comes down to in terms of what ifs for the Oakland Athletics, because so much change in baseball in Oakland following that 2001 failure in the division series against the Yankees. Let's say the Athletics had advanced, as we've talked about. Let's say they had met the Seattle Mariners in the championship series and beat the Mariners in that series to advance to the World Series. Maybe even suggest the Oakland Athletics win that World Series championship against the Arizona Diamondbacks. How does that change the course of baseball history? When it comes to the Oakland Athletics, we always have to talk about money. And when you're talking about the 2001 New York Yankees and what their team made in revenue by just making it to the World Series, the Yankees are $9 million in revenue from the division series against the Athletics. Now, the Athletics did not make as much because they only hosted 2 games rather than 3. And if we take and assume they won game 3, they would have only hosted 1 game. So let's take that down, suggest maybe $4 to $5 million in revenue for the Athletics for round 1. In round 2, the New York Yankees made $12.7 million in terms of home games in the ALCS. They hosted 3 games. Let's suggest that the Oakland Athletics also would have hosted 3 games, which would have brought in a very comparable $12.7 million. The average attendance for the Yankees in those games was 57,000 fans. That Oakland Coliseum could hold that many people, so it's definitely a very comparable number. In terms of the World Series, the Yankees would go on to host 3 of those games. Let's suggest that the Athletics could host 2 to 3 of those games. 3 is the easier comparison. That brought in the New York Yankees $20.75 million in revenue, directly impacted on the Yankees making it to the World Series. All total, we're suggesting in the area of $30 to $40 million extra for that season for the Oakland Athletics. And when you take into consideration that is just terms of tickets and everything that goes along with it, we include indirect spending that goes along with everything. And the Oakland Athletics could have received somewhere in the area of $100 to $130 million in indirect and direct economic impact on their franchise just by making it to the 2001 World Series. The World Series alone would have affected in the area of $40 to $60 million. So we've taken in consideration, let's take the Oakland Athletics all the way to the World Series at a minimum $100 million extra for that franchise. And we know the history of the Athletics to follow, where they're now moving to Las Vegas. $100 million in 2001. What happened following that season? They lost from free agency Johnny Damon and Jason Giambi. How could that have changed the franchise? Even with the defeat to the New York Yankees, the Athletics were well set up with one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. Mark Mulder, Tim Hudson, Barry Zito. We have to remember, Hudson and Mulder did not leave the Athletics until after 2004. So the Athletics were very well set up in terms of a young core. But they did lose out on Damon and Giambi. When you look back, that Giambi contract, who signed with the New York Yankees from the A's, 7 years, $120 million. Maybe a significant portion of that $100 to $120 million that the Athletics could have generated in revenue by making the World Series could have gone back into investing and keeping Giambi with the Athletics long term. And the 2002 Athletics would have been very well set offensively with Eric Chavez, the MVP of the 2002 season, Miguel Tejada, and that pitching staff with new closer Billy Koch in the back end. The Athletics would have been very vaunted. I remember that 2002 Athletics team would lose in the playoffs to the Minnesota Twins in an American League Division Series. And how could Jason Giambi have potentially flipped that series and created a bit of a dynasty run for those Athletics? If you'd gone to have a World Series appearance in 2001, 2002 saw them finish first in the division, 2003 first in the division, 2004, 2005 the Athletics finished second in the AL West both of those years. Imagine what the re-signing of Jason Giambi in his prime could have done for that Athletics franchise if they had been able to make that 2000 World Series, but we'll never know because of the Derek Jeter flip. When it comes to talking about what ifs, we have to consider 2002. That was the Moneyball Athletics. Without that, who knows if the development of analytics in baseball would have occurred as quickly. Of course, it would have still occurred. There's no question about that. Analytics were already growing into the game. It's not like the Athletics were bringing in something completely brand new to baseball, but it was certainly in its infancy, and the 2002 Athletics certainly helped propel it forward. And we probably wouldn't have the Moneyball movie if we're being honest as well. When it comes down to the long term though, and to think about the what ifs, what if that Derek Jeter play did not happen and Jeremy Giambi had slid in safely? The potential re-signing of Jason Giambi in the offseason. The possible progression of the Athletics as somewhat of a mini dynasty through the early 2000s. Maybe at that point in time we would have seen a reinvestment in the Athletics franchise, and who knows, maybe without the Derek Jeter flip, the biggest what if of all, the Oakland Athletics would be staying in 2023 as the Oakland Athletics, and the move to Las Vegas would have never happened.
But what if Jeter didn't make the legendary flip throw? How would history have changed?
The A's sweep, and I end up being wrong about them not being a World Series team.
2001, a weekend series against the Diamondbacks, who ultimately were world champions that year, in Arizona. Hudson, Mulder, Zito all pitched. In the offseason, Curt Schilling said to Mark Mulder at a golf tournament, "Thank God we didn't play you guys in the World Series because we never would have beaten you."
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you are into these kind of what if videos, make sure you are subscribed here on 3 Up, 3 Down, and comment down below what you would love to see in terms of a what if in Major League Baseball. As always, make sure you hit that like button. Go check out some of my previous videos, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.